we forget who can give us the best feedback, and that's the child, because we all respond differently to situations. I don't like to use positive or negative, really. I think it's more, is it productive or unproductive? Because what we focus on grows. If you want them to get better, focus on what they are. Teach them doing right. Um, what was his name? DeChico, I think, said that. Tony DeChico, that coached the U.S. women's team. He wrote a book with that title, Catch Him Doing Right. And he used this for the very best women players in the world. And that was why he said he had success.
Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Inside Scoop. My name is Neil Crawford. I'm your host and also the founder of Anytime Soccer Training. This is another installment of a mini series we're calling The Perfect Soccer Parent. And we use that title in jest because we know there are no perfect people or perfect soccer parents. But if you spent any time in the youth soccer space, you know that you get often receive a lot of information from different voices, all well intentioned, but it's a lot of information coming your way. And for me, I had a moment where I just hit time out and said, okay, if I'm perfect, what am I doing? And how do I distill all this stuff down? So we're going to have fun with it. And we're going to also provide some insightful information over the course of the year to help parents be better versions of themselves as it relates to youth soccer and their children's relationship. I have a special guest. I'm going to call her a recurring guest. I want you to come on at least once every few months, Tammy, and share some of the insight and wisdom you've gained over the years working with youth athletes. So I'm joined with Tami Matheny, who is an author and leading mental game coach. Tammy, welcome to the show. Tell us about your latest book that you just published.
All right. Well, I'm excited to be here first and foremost. I always enjoy having conversations with you. Latest book, not quite a year old. We'll be having an anniversary in February for it, but it's Challenger Deep, Athletes Rising Above Adversity. And I co-wrote it with a colleague of mine, Jeff Heggie. And what we did was we took 30 different athletes or teams that were at elite level and looked at what adversity or challenge they had had to overcome. Short story, 2 to 3 pages about this athlete and that challenge, and then ways that you can overcome that adversity if you are facing it in your life. So it's all about, we need adversity to be great. And so instead of shying away from it, how do we hit it head on so we can rise above?
And Tammy, thank you for that. I'm going to share with the group. This is a great one. That's exactly why I wanted you to come on and speak to our parents, because now with adversity in youth athletes, and what we're going to talk about is that how can parents best support their child, especially when it comes to giving feedback. Well, adversity for a child and adversity for a minor now has this dynamic of the adult in the ear, whether it be the parent, the coach, or even an older sibling. And how do we as parents support, right? And sometimes give some critical information if necessary, but don't do more harm than good. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next 20 minutes. Now, Tammy, I got my agenda here. I'm trying to be more organized heading into 2025. That was one of my big goals. And so I'm going to read off a question that I wrote in my agenda, and I want to get your initial thoughts. So, feedback for young athletes is a complex topic. It's often pulled between extremes. So, when I how do you strike the right balance? What is your overarching view? And when I say extremes, and I'm going to mischaracterize them for the purposes of this podcast, I've done a lot of work and did a lot of research on folks, so I know it's a little bit more nuanced to this. But for the purposes of this, you have people who will say, "I love to watch you play. The only thing you need to do in the car ride home is say, I enjoyed it. Whatever." Right? You have that kind of group, And then you have a group of folks who are a lot more intentional about, if you want to get better, you got to do this, this, and this. And they may agree that the car ride home, that's why I don't want to characterize anyone. They may agree that the car ride home is not the appropriate place. I'm not characterizing anyone, but there are these camps out here where one is the more of the parent who is going to train your kid and watch the game and tell them what they need to work on and stuff that, quite frankly, the coach may not notice. And then there's another camp of folks that just say, hey, watch them play, support them, love them. That's what it's all about. And these are generalizations, but these are
Yeah.
extremes. So how do you process this, and how do you think about sort of a framework for how people interact with their kids as it relates to sports?
You know what I say all the time with athletes I'm working with, or coaches or parents I work with, is that we forget who can give us the best feedback, and that's the child, because we all respond differently to situations. Every kid, I shouldn't say every kid, but children respond differently. We respond differently. So the more you study your child versus study the sport, the more you're aware of what works for them. And for some, that is the extreme coaching, the extreme getting involved. Others, that may not work, and that takes away their love, their joy. So, number one thing that we miss, and I think is the foundation, is study your child. What did they respond best to? But ultimately, what's their why? And too often, I feel like parents, we jump in and we want this for our child instead of, why is the child playing the sport? What do they want to get from it? Where do they want to go with it? And sometimes that's dangerous for parents because it may not be the answer the parent wants. Um, but when we listen to our child, that gives us the greater ability to be able to help them reach the goals that they want to reach, not that we want them to reach.
Right. So, Tammy, this was actually a trick. This is a free coaching session for me. I'm just disguising it as a podcast because I was thinking about my two boys, and they have totally different reasons for playing the game. And I had to take a step back and reflect on what I was doing. Right. So now the framework we're going to do before we wrap this up is the what, when, how, where, and why. So, and you don't have to go in this order, but let's just try to see how it goes. In general, a parent email in general, let's talk about the win. So a parent emailed me, and I did a podcast on this and said, hey, I know that you don't want to talk to your kid right after the game, but actually that's the time they can remember what actually happened. So his point was, that's the best time because that's when they remember it. So what were your thoughts? And I gave my opinion in the podcast, but I want to hear your opinion about right after the game. When is that the time? And if not, if that is not the time, and we're assuming their feedback is appropriate, when is a good time?
Well, I'm going to go a little more universal with this. Besides asking your child why they play, the second thing you need to ask them, and this is in a non-emotional moment before you go into practice or a game or not after, but ask them to put in writing, text, email, piece of paper. Number one, what do you need from me before an event? Number two, what do you need from me during an event? Because they're watching you and they know what you're doing during an event, whether we like it or not. Number three, what do you want after? Do you need an hour? And then let's talk about it. Do you want to start talking about it right away? Do you want me to let you bring it up? And most aren't going to know those answers right now, but we're getting them to start to take responsibility for their part of the communication and giving them a chance to say what they do best. Now, it's important not to ask those questions right after. Hey, do you want to talk about it? Because emotions are in whether they did well or not. So let's do it at the start of a season or a few days before there is an event. And, again, it's not going to give you the exact, but now you're involving them and you're working together in this relationship and you're giving them a chance to tell you what they need and want.
I love it. So I'm gonna do that with my younger one, and I'm gonna get his feedback and see what he says, and I'm gonna share it with you because I'd be very interested in it. And I think it's just an opportunity beyond sports for us to once again learn about our children's personalities.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Okay,
Can I
so
have one more thing too?
you can add as many as you want. Go ahead.
Okay. Because whenever they want to talk about it, let them talk about it and let them say, what did you say? Or what would you add? Because I have seen too many athletes have lost their confidence because they're waiting on that feedback from a parent and they're not able to determine to themselves if they played good or bad. And so the more open-ended questions you can ask them without you telling them initially, then you're letting them take more control of their own journey.
So I love it. And I should have started with this, but let's take a step even further back. I should have started with this one, Tammy. Why? I'm almost embarrassed to even ask. Why should I, as a parent, give my 11-year-old any feedback about a game experience?
And
Or how do you think about the why? Benefits, pros, and cons. And then I'll share some personal things from my perspective.
okay. So you're asking me why a parent should ever give feedback?
Yeah, so in my podcast, oftentimes I'll say some people will view these type of conversations we're having as ignoble in and of themselves. You shouldn't even bother even why would you even give an 11-year-old any feedback about a game? And how do you understand yourself? I'm not doing a great job of answering the question because asking the questions because it's very hard and I'm trying to remove myself from the equation. But why might this be a benefit to even give feedback to an 11-year-old about a game? Why might an 11-year-old who doesn't completely understand the reason, appreciate that feedback when they become older? Or is this just corrupt in and of itself and you should just avoid it?
Well,
Be-
again, I think the things we talked about before help with the answer to that question. Why does your child play? If they just want to be with their friends, then maybe we don't need to give as much feedback. If they have this ambition to be great, then maybe we start to, if we're knowledgeable in it. Um, so again, the why they play is so important. But also, I think the feedback needs to be about things that they can control. Too many times I hear, "Oh, my gosh, what a great goal you had." Can they control scoring a goal? No. So what about instead of what a great goal? Because that gets them basing their confidence on results, which we can't control results. So too often athletes' confidence is results and or feedback, and it goes up and down, roller coaster. So, okay, what did they do that they could control to get that goal? Maybe the run that they ran. Oh my gosh, the runs you were making or the passes. So the things they can control. Loved how you hustled back. Loved how you communicated. That kind of feedback should be as much as you want to give. The feedback on good or bad of performance and result base is where you think you're helping, but you're really setting your child up for harm. And I say this to parents as well. Coaches. I challenge coaches to give that type of feedback to their players. Because if we build the things they can't control, more likely than not, they have a better chance of getting the results they want. But stop talking about results.
Yeah, and I'll add that as a parent now, my oldest one's a teenager, and I've evolved. I evolved more into let's on the rare occasions I do give any feedback, it's more around how how do people who want to improve aspects of anything in life, how do they tend to think about it? So, for example, an example could be let's visualize the first 10 minutes of a game. Let's visualize the middle and let's visualize the end. And you share with me how you want to play. Because I'm going to tell you something. A lot of times as parents, we forget. about fatigue. We forget that there's a levels of trust with each teammate. I mean, just common sense stuff. Oh, if I pass the ball to this guy, he may lose it. We forget all this stuff. So when I did that with my son, he explained to me the position I'm playing, which is the six, which is a holding midfielder. The first 10 minutes, I have to set the tempo, and I just can't lose the ball and give up an easy goal because we have the rest of the game to play, and we don't want to play from behind. So I'm a little bit more conservative in the first 10 minutes. I also have to fill out the team. I have to fill out how they're defending and all this information I'm gathering. And then I become a little bit more aggressive. Now, had he not told me that, and I was the type of parent who wanted to give him feedback, what are some of the things I would be saying? Then you got to start the game fast. You gotta start off. You started off slow, or you wasn't hustle. It took 10 minutes before you really got into it. But after he explained that at least gave me some perspective. So my, you know, unqualified tip, if anyone is listening, is going back to what you're saying, but give them tools that helps them communicate to you almost like a sounding board what they're trying to accomplish.
Exactly. I love that. Love it, love it, love it. 'Cause
So, oh,
well,
go
wait.
ahead. No,
I
no,
was
you
gonna
said
say,
ultimately.
ultimately, the 4 things they can control for their confidence is their self-talk. So asking questions, "Hey, what were you thinking to your what were you saying to yourself there?" Their body language, how they carry themselves, because that's so important. I mean, you know that. If they're dejected, it's a lot harder to play. So body language, self-talk, how they see themselves, and visualization, like you just mentioned, and then prep. It's hard to be confident if they don't put in the work, and that's things they can't control. So in the Confident Athlete book, that's the 4 I talk about. If we focus as parents and coaches on those 4 aspects daily, we're building a confident child, which is gonna lead to a more successful child.
So, how have you seen parents give feedback that's positive and then maybe not so positive?
I don't like to use positive or negative, really. I think it's more, is it productive or unproductive? Because you can get on your child as long as it's productive, but if you just tell them they stink, that's not that's negative. So I like to use those words more. But you know, one tool that I give parents and coaches after a game, once the child has said, "Hey, this is when I'm ready to talk about it," are what I call 5 1s. 5 specific things they did well to one thing they need to work out. And that is so reversed of what many do. It's reversed from what I did to myself as an athlete. I thought the best way to get better was to pick apart everything I did wrong. But what we do is overwhelm our brains. So if we're doing that, hey, you need to do this, this, and this to our child, mentally they check out. If your wife tells you, hey, honey, you need to do this, this, and this, and this, and this, you're not doing this right, what do you do?
Check out.
Check out. And
I'm
she's
already
like,
checked. She tell me that all the time.
what? And she's like, honey, I like that you do this. I appreciate this. I like this. And she gives you 5 things you like. And then, hey, but I need you to work on this. Boy, you're going to do that one, right?
I'm sharing this segment to her with her after the call.
But,
So,
but our kids respond the same way. And as athletes, if you're working with your child's going to respond to themselves the same ways. So getting them to do 5 1s.
oh, I didn't think about that.
Oh, yeah, because you want their feedback for get this, hear what they have to say first. And say, okay, well, my 5 1s for you would have been this. And compare the two.
Okay.
And
So,
that creates good discussion there instead of you just being the one that's like telling them.
all right. So, a couple more questions. Now, the where sounds weird, but in
Mhm.
my mind, I can visualize it. I have been there and have done that, guilty as charged, and I see it, in the parking lot. Parent is like, 3 or 4 feet ahead of the child, going to the car, stopping. The child is kind of dejected, they lost, turning around, giving some feedback, turning around, giving some feedback about what the child probably didn't do right, and all upset. So when we start talking about where, what are some things that parents can think about in terms of where you give that feedback?
Again, I hate to make this about relationships, but where do you want feedback from your spouse? Where's the most effective, where you are most receptive what's being said? And, for some, that might be on the field. Um, Probably not too many, but, asking your child, "Where do you wanna talk about this?" And having, I don't know if it's a safe space where you don't talk about it. Like, I never wanted my dad to come in my bedroom and talk about it. My bedroom was my safe space where I could get away from something. Now, we'll talk about it at the dinner room table or something. So having specific set places where we talk about it, then there's other places that's safe for your child not to have to worry about it, where they can become that 11-year-old that doesn't care about sports for a moment.
Now I'm doing a speed round because I intentionally want folks to listen completely through this. It's a lot of good information, and I'm gonna have you on a couple more times. What about see, I'm not a huge fan. People email me all the time. I'm actually not a huge fan of filming for the purpose of trying to find mistakes and analyzing it. But that's not an official recommendation. I'm just a parent. But the time, first of all, time it would take. And then secondly, who wants to who wants to see their every move analyzed on film? But I'm being biased. I'm already leading the question. But what is the I like film
Mhm.
in terms of it being somewhat objective occasionally, but to me, it's just an opportunity to celebrate what the kids have done well. What do you take? What's your take?
I'm a lot more on your line of thinking. And again, I think it's age. What age are we talking about, and level that we're talking about? The older they get, the higher level they play. I do start seeing more and more reason for the film to analyze it. But if you're talking about a young child, I'm only using it to celebrate it, because what we focus on grows. If you want them to get better, focus on what they are. Teach them doing right. Um, what was his name? DeChico, I think, said that. Tony DeChico, that coached the U.S. women's team. He wrote a book with that title, Catch Him Doing Right. And he used this for the very best women players in the world. And that was why he said he had success. So if you can have success with that type of player, what's your child doing right? And that's going to grow more and more and more.
Yeah, and so what I preach in the podcast, if I see something that I want my children to improve upon, let's say I have a son that's left footed, I want him to work on his right foot. I'm gonna work with him in the backyard. I don't actually have to show him very specifically that opportunity he could have did this and that because I'm gonna be working on it. So it's not like you don't work on it. I just haven't seen kids be have not seen kids respond well to
Mhm.
empirical evidence in the same way that being in a court of law, no one it just makes them defensive. But you know your child. Some children they might love it. You
Again,
know
why
your
you want to
child.
ask those three questions?
Now, here's another one that's controversial, and you don't have to be agreeable, but I have seen it used as um, a means to for some bad behavior. Oh, I don't coach them on the sidelines unless I see issues with effort. Oh, I don't do this unless I see issues with effort. But that's a tough one to me because effort is subjective. And I've just seen it used in the right way. And I've seen it used in a non productive way when it comes to effort. And it's also this expectation that every time your child hits the field, they're supposed to be an equalizer bunny, and it just not necessarily energizer bunny. Excuse me, it is not necessarily going to always be the case. What do you think?
I completely agree. I don't think there's ever time coaching should be done from the sideline. This is the time for your athlete to be immersed in the game and enjoy the game. And what we're doing with teaching our children that way is becoming dependent on you. And then let's say they get to college and they're so dependent on you, what's they're looking for you constantly. And it is probably one of the top two biggest turnoffs for college coaches in the recruiting process. So I know we're jumping ahead, but I know many college coaches that did not recruit a kid because they didn't want to have to deal with the coaching and the parent on the sideline. So game time is a time for the game. So as Pete Carroll, famous football coach, said, during a game, parents and coaches should be the best cheerleader or best poker player.
how's the poker player? Quiet or?
When something's going bad,
Oh,
you're playing poker,
to use that one.
not giving anything away. Because they watch. If your son messes up and had a horrible play, a lot of times they'll look and see what did dad think when they look at your body language. And it dejects them more if you're not just like, you know, stoic or come on, get back.
All right. So just want to summarize what I've learned, and then I want you to give the final thoughts on anything I missed. So the first thing is understanding your child's why. Why are they doing this? Why are they involved in sports? Then understanding their personality, investing the time to learn about your child, their personality. So you understand their why, you understand their personality, you reflect on your behavior, and then you let them, to the extent possible, lead the conversation. And you just give them, I'm adding this piece, you give them tools and frameworks to help them lead the conversation. And I'm going to add this piece. Well, you said it could be as simple as, here are the questions, you write it out. It can be whatever medium they want in order to have this conversation, but give them the tools to empower them to hold dad in check. Dad has promised that he's not going to do this, this, and this. And my younger one always, I've kind of reformed now. I'm getting older. I'm not as, I don't know. I'm just kind of relaxed now. But on those occasions, I'm not. My younger one will hold me in check. Dad, you said you were going to do this, and you didn't. So give them an opportunity to hold you accountable. And then anything that they agree to, you can, as a normal parent, can help hold them accountable, hold them on task. That's kind of what I got from it. In terms of the coaching on the sidelines, that's a non-starter. I just haven't seen. I always joke with my parents saying, look, I think I may have said this to you too. When you watch an NFL football game and the quarterback comes on the sidelines, he's a millionaire. He has two other millionaires next to him. Those millionaires have millionaires upstairs, and they're all talking all with the $100,000 tablets, showing that quarterback in detail, film and pictures, exactly what he did 2 minutes ago, and they scheme up exactly what they want him to do.
Mhm.
Do you think, because I'm a Carolina Panthers fan, do you think he goes out there and executes what they just told him? No, not all the time. Why? Because it's really hard. So do you think you yelling at your kid is going to get some kind of result? And people will say to me, yeah, Neil, but if I tell him to move left, he moves left. Well, the analogy I give, and I'm gonna give you the final thoughts on that, is it's almost like someone suffering from a lifestyle disease, and you give them some, say, low blood pressure medicine or anti-inflammatory. Yeah, you'll get a quick fix, and it'll look like they're healed, but they're just reacting to your voice. But what happens when that anti-inflammatory medicine is gone, or that low blood pressure medicine is gone? And they still have the same lifestyle, you're not really curing them. And the only way you can cure them in terms of youth soccer is they understand the game, they're coachable, they experience those mistakes without you interfering. That's the way the brain, and that's the way you learn, and it becomes seared in your mind. Final thoughts, Tammy.
I agree with all of that. You are so right. They might have needed to move left, but they got to learn that on their own, not you almost like having a joystick and operating their movements. And that's when we create robotic athletes from the overcoach and the overanalyze them. Let them make mistakes. That's where they learn. We started off talking about adversity. We need adversity. We need failure to see how good we are and how good we can rise from that. And the more the parent tries to inject in that, we're doing a disservice to our child. They need to experience it. Now I know there are some things that you got to say no, no, this can't happen, but time and place are so important.
Tammy, I said I was gonna let you go. I have to ask this.
Yeah.
What happens? I gotta ask this and let you go. So what happens if the coach, and for the purpose of this, let's assume they're sincerely just not good at their job, whatever. I'm not bashing my coaches. I love my coaches. Let's assume that for the sake of argument, they just not doing whatever the parent perceives they should be doing. What's your advice to your parents when that's the situation? Because a lot of parents will tell me, "Oh, I wouldn't do this if the coach did this, this, and this."
Yeah, I think a lot use it as an excuse. And second, the coach may be wrong, but at 11-year-old, is that really important or letting the child figure it out on their own? The probably right now, I've had 5 athletes that I work with individually right now. I got a lot, but I'm just thinking of 5 immediately that come to my mind that are struggling to perform in games because dad is telling them to do one thing and coach is telling them to do the other. And they get frozen because I gotta listen to dad, and dad might be right, but then coach is saying one thing too. And it, I like this is the last thing I'll say. It can be the worst piece of advice, or let's say, I use this as basketball analogy. Coach draws up a timeout, last play of the game. They need it to win the game. If all 5 athletes believe in that play, it could be the worst play in the game. And it has a better chance of working than the best coach drawing up the best play and the athletes not thinking it'll work or getting upset because they want to be the one to take the shot. So, to me, it's all about giving your athlete that freedom to experience failure and success and learning what does work and doesn't work instead of cluttering their mind with too much information.
Tammy, I could go for 2 hours, but we're gonna cut it here, and I'm gonna pin you in the calendar to have you back on to talk about another nuanced subject. Guys, I sat down with Tami Matheny. I'm gonna share your book on the Facebook group. Now that I have a teenager, I'm gonna get my teenager to read it as well. And thank you so much for joining us on the Inside Scoop. It's been a pleasure.
Well, I enjoyed it, Neil. Thanks for having me.
Take care, guys.